It's Monday, June 3rd, 2024. Welcome you to the June 3rd meeting of the Milford Board of Aldermen. Please join me as we salute our flag, and I'd ask you to stand with a moment of silence for State Trooper First Class Aaron Pelletier, who lost his life tragically while he was on duty. Thank you. Thank you. Right now we'll have a presentation from our mayor, Mayor Giannatasio. You got the floor. That'll make sure everybody's paying attention.
Good evening. Can I ask the lifeguards to come forward, please? Maura and Kaylee. These are two lifeguards that were at Gulf Beach. The first day on the job, the summer, they had a call to duty, a rescue, and they saved a life. So let's give them a big round of applause. So this is a proclamation. This is a very special proclamation for me as mayor to present tonight to you both on your teamwork, on your heroic efforts to save lives. Our beaches are open and our beaches are safe. On Saturday, May 25th, Maura Staples and Kaylee Morton arrived to work Memorial Day weekend at Gulf Beach for an anticipated normal day as a lifeguard on a beautiful day here in Milford, Connecticut. And while monitoring the waters, they noticed a swimmer a good distance from shore by the entrance of the marina. Maura and Kaylee so quickly and effortlessly jumped into action. Without skipping a beat, the girls began swimming out to the swimmer, who was clinging onto a buoy as his two friends decided to jump off the rocks and swim towards him. And when the girls reached the now there struggling swimmers, they understood why they were struggling. The currents outside of the harbor were extremely powerful. Thankfully, a boater passing by stopped to help. They all got on board and were able to return to shore safely. And if it was not for the awareness and the quick response, the quick call of action by Maura and Kaylee, what was supposed to be a fun and exciting weekend could have turned tragic. Now, therefore, I, Anthony S. Giannatasio, Mayor of the City of Milford, Connecticut, by the virtue of authority vested in me, do hereby extend our thanks and admiration for your bravery and teamwork, which saved 3 lives. 3. We are very proud of you. Congratulations.
Thank you. As it turns out, last week was the 10th anniversary of Linda's passing. So as we do business at Parsons this next week, let's take a moment to pause by Linda's memorial bench to remember the contribution she made to the lifeblood of the city of Milford. And then stop by the city clerk's office to offer Pete a word of congratulations and thanks for his willingness to be a steward of Milford's history. Thank you for your consideration.
Hello, my name is Mary Elizabeth Oak, better known as Emmy. I live at 30 Dorinna Place, and I've been a resident for nearly 7 years. This past year, I have attended the Board of Education meetings, every single meeting bar 3. One was due to a contractor that had to be working late in my home. The other 2 times was due to illness, one of which was when I broke my foot. I became very aware of how hard that Board of Ed works and how our education system has been working, more than I've ever realized, which is quite different to what I grew up with in England. I am also a dyslexic, as you know, and one that wasn't amount to very much at 15. My passing ability was practically 0. I succeeded with help, correct help, to be able to get a BA, 2 masters, and a partial PhD, and crawl up from being a dyer in a dye house of minimum wage up to second in command of the biggest design studio in this country for carpet. So I know how important good education is. Now, your public education system in this country overall has a lot more to be desired than what I grew up with. Granted, it had the ability to recognize the ability of dyslexics earlier than the country I grew up in. But I come from a culture of one side that's Scottish, and we're adamant about education, and we'll do whatever it takes financially to make the next generation better than our own. That is the same with the Orientals. Now, in that case, they're doing very well economically in every respect. Now, not this year, but last year, the budget was cut from education. Granted, some of it came back again, thanks to both Democrats and Republicans. This year, every single Democrat voted to try and put back some of the money, if not all, but some. Every single Republican did not. Not one of you bent. Our mayor, who's a Republican, ran on being an advocate for education. And I'm sure the rest of you sat on his coattails about it. I am disgusted with every single one of you for not doing anything to improve the cut, to make it less. Kids are the future. If you don't educate them, and the bulk in public education system comes from the poor, if you don't educate them, then they're not able to go forward. Education is power. And my feeling is each one of you don't want their power or their abilities. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is David Salinas. I live at 25 Randy Road here in Milford. I've been in Milford for almost 20 years, in my house for almost 10. I'm here to talk to you all about reconsidering the cannabis ban that this city put forth. We have a revenue problem right now, and I feel a couple years ago I did some research to understand why this city chose to ban cannabis. A lot has changed in those 2 years. In the last 30 days, the HHS made a recommendation to reschedule cannabis from where it was with heroin, above cocaine, and put it to Schedule 3, where it is considered harmless or less harmful. That was approved by the DEA, the Department of the Drug Enforcement Administration, just a few weeks ago, and the Biden administration has now put it forth through the Justice Department for public hearing. That is going to change the taxability of the product and more. The reason why I bring this to the attention is because there wasn't a proper due diligence on cannabis and the legalization of it in this city. Because I went and I've asked for the documents for the research. And what I found was there was no proper research on the public safety, right? What happens if you legalize it, you take it out of the smoke shops and the gas stations that are littered in this city right now. There are 5 within a half-a-mile bird's flight of this building right now, with one standing in front of our beloved downtown next to Stonebridge, which advertises vape and tobacco and THC and kratom and all these drugs that the kids are able to get, and they are illegal, they are not tested, they are not regulated. This is a major safety issue for the city, okay? In addition to that, there is a revenue issue that we have. The taxes are going up for the 4th year in a row. I can tell you that the revenue that this city would get, there's a store in Danbury that is doing $17 million a year right off the highway. You get 3% of that revenue. That is substantial revenue. There's one in Montville doing $21 million. There's a store in Springfield, Massachusetts doing $56 million on the highway. We have the longest stretch of highways in the state, and we're not taking advantage of that. In addition, our citizens, 55,000 people, give or take, are going to the neighboring towns. There's 2 stores in Stratford, there's a store in Orange. 3% of our citizens' revenue that should go back into our systems is now going into the neighboring towns. I believe that's close to $600,000 a year in tax revenue. That is substantial dollars. I have prepared a document that talks about all of this, and I would ask any one of you to review. It doesn't have the information about the recent rescheduling because that's rather new, and I worked on this before that, but it talks about the revenue. The state of Connecticut is going to have $750 million in adult sales revenue that is going to go through the different cities, and those cities, and Milford could be one of those cities. And the bottom line is that the tides are changing. Less and less people are using alcohol, right? Beer sales are down, alcohol sales are down, right? People are going to NA or they're using cannabis in different ways. They're not smoking, there's no stoner culture anymore. It's actually going much older. And I think that we need to open our minds and our hearts up to this new world, get the revenue, create safety, reduce crime, because what we have right now is black markets and gray markets with the gas stations and the smoke shops, and I believe that it would be a benefit to the city of Milford. There's proof in the pudding that the values of homes go up when it is legalized. It is proof that quality of life goes up. It's been disproven that it is a gateway drug. And I ask you all to please reconsider the ban. Now, I am a father of 3 children, 3, 5, and 15. I've got high school and everything. I know what this product can do. I know what it can do from a revenue perspective. And I just think that if everybody were to discuss it a little bit more and actually do the proper due diligence, that you would pick up about $6 million in revenue over the next 10 years. And we know the city needs it. Thank you for your time, and I appreciate it. If anybody would like to meet, we can discuss it. I'm also a technology entrepreneur, and I'm happy to meet with anyone.
Good evening, everyone. So my name is Mark Malone. I live at Greer Circle. I've been a Milford resident for over 30 years. I would like to put forward a motion, as it's called, I guess, to do away with bulk pickup. It's ridiculous. People don't obey the rules. Our city looks terrible for 4 to 6 weeks during the bulk pickup. There are other cities and towns out there that do it by appointment only. It puts undue stress on our Public Works Department, who is not only picking up trash and recycling, but now spending overtime dollars picking up people's bulk pickup. They're not just putting out like a garbage can. Some people are putting out entire house load contents onto the street. And our city looks terrible. Terrible, terrible. I choose not to do it. We have an inundation with junk pickers driving the streets and neighborhoods of our city at all hours of the day and night, making a mess of what people are putting out there. Like I said, they're putting out chairs, beds, couches, entire houses, and they're putting it out there for 4 to 6 weeks. I had a relative here 2 weeks ago who said to me, "What's going on? The town looks terrible." They can't keep up, the Department of Public Works, with the amount of crap, excuse my language, that people put out on the street way too early to be picked up. I would love to see bulk pickup diminished. Do it. West Haven does it by appointment only. There has to be a way for the city of Milford that actually looks really good to do away with bulk pickup. Again, like I said, Department of Public Works can't keep up. They receive emails from people like me wondering what's going on. And it's just not right. You know, there's a time frame of when the garbage or whatever is supposed to be put on the street. People abuse that time frame, and you're driving around the city 6 weeks, there's garbage out. It's terrible. So I would ask that the bulk pickup system be revisited and possibly eliminated. Thanks.
My name is, actually, good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Board of Aldermen members. My name is Gerald Foley. I reside at 480 Woodland Drive, Devon, Connecticut. I resided at the same address for over 30 years. I come before you this evening to discuss the transfer station facility. As you're aware, the Milford Transfer Station facility is available for use by all City of Milford residents generating solid waste within Milford. Milford residents that own passenger car or passenger SUV utilize this facility at no fee. Although Milford residents that own pickup trucks, myself included, have been required to pay a fee to utilize this facility for numerous years. We're also required to pay a fee. I'm here to ask you why passenger cars I'm here to ask you why passenger pickup owners are being required to pay a fee to dispose of their debris, and apparently have been made to pay a fee to dispose of their debris for many years, when the passenger cars and SUVs that utilize the same facility do so for free. I recently visited the Office of the Tax Assessors to obtain a copy of the vehicle grand list so that I would have a better understanding of how many Class 1 passenger vehicles, that's cars, pickups, and SUVs, are registered in the city of Milford. According to the 2021 grand list, that's the most current that's on file, there are a total of 38,471 Class 1 vehicles registered in the city of Milford. Of those 38,476 Class 1 vehicles, I was surprised to discover that there are only 1,681 Class 1 pickups listed on the 2021 grand list. Those 1,680 pickups amount to approximately 4.8% of the Class 1 vehicles. Hence, over 95% of the registered Class 1 vehicles in the city of Milford are passenger cars and SUVs that utilize the transfer station facility at no charge, whereas 4.8% of the passenger pickups must pay a disposal fee for each and every trip that they visit the transfer station facility. Additionally, passenger pickup truck owners are also required to wait in line to weigh their vehicle upon entry to the transfer station facility, and once they dispose of their debris, they're required to wait in line again to have their vehicle reweighed and then pay the weighmaster for any debris that is disposed. You may or may not be aware that passenger cars and/or passenger SUVs are not required to wait in these multiple lines at the transfer station facility. In fact, they are never weighed. Recently, in a single week, I trimmed several bushes in front of my own home, and the result was 6 bags of debris. I brought those 6 bags of debris to the transfer station and the bed of my small pickup truck, and I was charged $7.50 to dispose of about 100 pounds of debris. Based on my calculation, my annual cost to dispose of my yard debris could easily reach hundreds of dollars, where had I had the luxury of bringing that same yard debris to the transfer station in a passenger car or a passenger SUV, there would have been no fee to dispose of that same debris. That doesn't seem fair to me. As a side note, on a previous occasion, I'd also tried to drive to the transfer station in my pickup truck, park outside the gate, and then walk into the facility carrying my debris. But I was told by Public Works personnel that walking into the transfer station was not allowed because it was a safety concern and that I would need to drive in and be weighed. Needless to say, I believe that the existing trash policy at the transfer station regarding passenger pickup trucks does not seem very fair. In fact, I would go as far as to call it highly prejudicial to passenger pickup truck owners. I also contacted several surrounding cities and towns in our area regarding the city's transfer station policy, and I was not able to locate another city or town that had a similar policy, that had one set of rules for passenger cars and SUVs and a separate set of rules for passenger pickups. In conclusion, I suggest that the city adopt a new transfer station policy that provides all city residents that have a Class 1 vehicles, that's passenger cars, passenger pickups, and passenger SUVs that are registered in the city of Milford with free access to the transfer station. And if you're concerned with misuse, then I suggest that you simply establish an annual weight disposal allowance for all residents. For example, you could consider 1,500 pounds per residence, or simply weigh all of the vehicles and not just pickups. I look forward to your efforts in resolving what I deem as an unfair policy, which I believe has been in place for over 60 years. And I think all Milford residents should be treated in the same manner, and there should not be one policy. There should be one policy for all residents. And also, if you're wondering why you're just hearing about this for now, from my standpoint, it's because I just purchased a passenger vehicle myself, and I just became aware of this issue as I'd previously owned SUV vehicles. Thank you for your time and for listening to me.
Board of Aldermen, Mr. Mayor, good evening. My name is Martina Porcelli, and I live at 80 Grant Street. Unlike the previous speakers, I have not lived here for a long time. I've lived in the northern part of the state, and I recently moved down here. I'm a nurse, single mom, put my 3 kids through college, working a billion jobs, and after they made it through college, I saved up as much money as I could to move down here. And while I was looking for houses, I had a wonderful real estate agent, and she told me about the history of Milford and how I would get the best bang for my buck by moving to Milford because of their low taxes and their consistently low taxes, and how it was the safest and best town to move to because of that. And seeing as how I was a single woman and my 3 kids were grown, I wanted to have a house near the ocean that was the most safe and stable environment. And so obviously after putting 3 kids through college, I knew I had to live on a budget. So I budgeted the money I had saved and how I could survive on a budget, knowing I'm working on my back 9 and I eventually will retire to stay here. And so I did all of that. But now, with the increase in taxes, I can't live on my budget. I have to go into my savings every month just to pay my bills. So that means eventually my forever home will not be my forever home. I'll end up having to lose it because I will go through my savings before I will finish living, which is kind of not the point of buying a forever home by the ocean. So I think the increase in taxes is prohibitive and ridiculous, to be honest. So I would really like it if you would reconsider the taxes and make it so that people who are elderly and living on fixed income can actually stay in their houses and live on their budget. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, Mayor Gentasio and Board of Aldermen. My name is Adam Scobie. My address is 46 Fairview Street. Harry Truman once said, "The buck stops here." I expect Mayor Gentasio would agree that the responsibility for our city's welfare ultimately rests within his office. In recent weeks, I've heard numerous excuses. It's the Alderman's fault, the Finance Board's fault, the Board of Education's fault, and the department head's fault. However, the boards and department heads remain largely the same as they were during previous administrations when our taxes remained stable or were even reduced. This finger pointing does not reflect the leadership Milford needs. True leaders lead, they don't shift blame. In fact, under the previous administrations, the people of Milford came to rely on sound and responsible financial management. This trust was built over years of careful stewardship. However, the current administration has quickly raised the mill rate more than it has been raised over the last 12 years combined. This unprecedented increase is alarming and unsustainable. I fear that, like many others, I will not be able to afford this significant tax hike. It is not just a matter of financial strain for the present, it raises grave concerns about what this administration might impose in next year's budget. We need decisive leadership that prioritizes the financial well-being of our citizens, not one that burdens them with excessive taxes. That's what the people of Milford deserves. Thank you.
Good evening, Board, Mayor. My name is Casey Cook. I've been a lifelong resident of Milford, Connecticut. I was born and raised in this city. I attempted to move out of this city 3 different times, and it kept pulling me back. It's a great place to live. It's a great place to grow up. I'm raising 3 young children here, and this town hall meeting tonight has been excellent. 77 Thompson Street. The real winners of this meeting so far have been those lifeguards. That's a really great thing to hear. But I am here in support of David. And, we've heard several times tonight about the tax hikes, and the taxes in the city needed to go up. But we need to find ways to curb that a little bit. And I strongly believe that Milford should reconsider the ban on cannabis. Connecticut, in the first year of legalized cannabis, saw nearly $250 million of revenue, and it's just going to increase. We had 2 dispensaries in this city, one on New Haven Ave and the other one was on, I think, West River. But they both left because of the ban on rec cannabis. Orange has recently opened a store, they're planning to. Stratford's doing the same thing, and city residents are just, it's a quick drive to each one of those towns. So they're headed out of town to these locations. And the smoke shops, we heard a little bit about those tonight. Personally, the one on Daniel Street bothers me. I think that's a whole nother meeting. But they're popping up everywhere. The neon lights, personally, it drives me nuts. And there's THC products being sold in these places that are unregulated. And the kids, there's a specific gas station on New Haven Avenue that is selling the unregulated THC, the CBD, the gummies, all the things. And I see the population of young kids, teens, building up at this, this store. The regulated dispensaries help control the crime. Studies show that the crime rates do not rise because of regulated dispensaries. And it helps curb the black market activity, which is still going on. The legal cannabis, dispensaries and facilities, they operate under stringent safety, quality regulations. And again, it mitigates, the black market, the unregulated, and really it's keeping an eye on what, folks are putting into their bodies. And some of it can be really dangerous, really harmful. So to reconsider the ban, in my opinion, is a good idea. Thanks for hearing me.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Gisela Huerta, and I live 45 William Street, Milford, Connecticut. The reason why I'm here, and also our neighbors from William Street, it's because we have one request. This is a request since 2010. And my neighbors who preceded me, I moved in Milford with my family in 2004. They also raised the same issue. They have always requesting the preservation of an adequate buffer strip on the unfinished portion of William Street. And why we want that? The reason why we want that is because we want to preserve the residential atmosphere on our street. We want to preserve our values, our property values. We are good residents, we are taxpayers, and we are just interested in how to beautify our street. We want to preserve our values. So, since 2010, we have been requesting the city to maintain it as a buffer strip to ensure its preservation and designate it as an area where trees and vegetation are maintained and preserved. We also note that this area holds utility lines, storm drain, and sanitary sewer systems which cannot be served by a private entity. It will significantly have a negative effect on the value of our residential properties. It will increase traffic noise, disturbance, pollution, and nuisance. At the meeting with the Board of Aldermen in 2019, we opposed to a request made by AAA to abandon the city's rights on that area. Once again, we are asking your office not to abandon your rights on the paper street, and instead to protect it and convert it to an open space for the promotion and maintenance of the residential character of William Street, and to record it accordingly on the land records of the city of Milford. It's our understanding that Mr. Daniel Thunberg of 0 William Street has presented a road abandonment application. And we do not have details about what his plans are. We received a letter from an attorney who did not state who his client is. We presume is Mr. Daniel Thunberg. And we want to hear what their plans are for our buffer zone. We want to know what they're planning to do, why they're asking the city of Milford to abandon the rights it has. I know there is an issue that the city of Milford does not own it. So it's not clear to us what the situation is, but we don't want to get into the middle here of what the good neighbors on the light industrial area want to do. The only thing is that we want to preserve the beauty of our street. It's just a simple request. But we want once and for all to record it so that nobody comes and clears the trees, nobody comes and clears the vegetation, nobody puts signs at the end of the street saying that this is a business, this is a shop. We don't want anybody to park cars there. We don't want any noise. We already hear a lot of noise. It's very disturbing in the middle of the night, very early in the morning. We don't want pollution. We're very close to I-95. We're very close to the Milford tracks. There is already a lot of noise, but the trees and the vegetation kind of work as a buffer zone. In 2010, we called the Milford police because somebody had cleared most of the trees. Now there are less trees, there's less vegetation. The police came and then they cited us, and since that time we have been coming and going. We haven't gone to Superior Court yet, but so this is just a friendly request to support us, and this is also for the benefit of the city of Milford. We want our street pretty. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Mr. Mayor, Board of Aldermen, thank you so much. Just a short statement. I received 2 of these letters. It's really interesting. From a law firm based, 53 William Street. I'm 3 houses away from this proposed interest. And they said, you have the right to present your views on this matter to the Board of Aldermen at that time and place. You know, usually when I go to present views to someone, I have details. I have facts. I don't like arguing in ignorance, and I consider this an insult to send me a letter like this that says, come to the board and speak your views in absence of knowledge. That's all.
I'm Carla, and I live at 73 William Street. I have actually lived on William Street since I was 10 years old. I moved there when my parents built their house at 83 William Street, and after I got married, we built ours at 73, and then the road extended to include all my neighbors. So I have seen many changes on that street, and I can tell you I've seen the end of our street move closer and closer to the train tracks and I-95. And any closer, we're gonna have constant noise all night long. It's gotten louder and louder every time we got closer to the train tracks in 95. I mean, when they did start to remove that vegetation that one year, I could definitely notice a big difference, and especially in the winter when we don't have the leaves and everything, it's even worse, more noise, and you can see the train tracks more, the lights from the highway, everything. It's very disturbing. And it would be a big change for our neighborhood. You know, we'll see the highway more, we'll see the trains, we'll see the commercialization that's going on Rowe Avenue. We need that buffer. We have a beautiful residential street. We have a lot of children, a lot of young families moved in. We have a lot of little children playing on that street because it's you know, like a dead end. They're out there biking and everything. We would lose all of that if we were to lose that buffer and change it, make it more commercial or whatever. We need to keep that buffer. It's a simple thing to do. I would really, really hate to lose it. It would really ruin the street and the neighborhood. Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Al Sedich, 41 William Street. I think the message is clear. do not abandon William Street without providing more information. Please, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, and good evening to all of you, Board of Aldermen. I'm Joy Paradino. I came here for 30 years from the Philippines, and I married my husband, who is also born and raised in Milford for many, many years. And I support my neighbor, please, and I live in 54 William Street. Yes, please. Can you just support us on our cause? Thank you very much. I live in 54 William Street in Milford, Connecticut. Okay.
Good evening. Matt Kelsch, 64 William Street. I think I'm the newest homeowner on the street. We just moved there about 1.5 years ago. We moved there specifically to stay in Milford and leave Walnut Beach because of the traffic in there, and we have young kids. So we bought a house on the street specifically for the dead end, and it is the only house on the street, I believe, that is a dead end in the area. So I'm also asking you to consider this as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Anyone else wishing to address the board can do so at this time. And you got to pick up the mic when you do so. Seeing no one else wants to speak to the board, we're going to move on to agenda item number 3. Alderman Pacelli, agenda item number 3, consideration of minutes.
Agenda item number 3, consideration of minutes of the regular meeting of the Board of Aldermen held on May 6, 2024.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Alderman Federico.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask to amend the minutes. There's a typographical error at the bottom of page 7. It says Alderman Ark and Marl, and I believe that's Alderman Archeolo and Marlowe. Thank you.
I'll be the runner. Thank you, Alderman Federico. Any more discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes unanimously with the amendment of the typographical errors. Agenda item number 4, there was no special meeting. Agenda item number 5, Chairman's report. I'd just like to wish everyone, all the men on this board, a happy Father's Day for this month of June, and also all the fathers out there in the audience and in the city of Milford. I'd like to also mention that on Sunday, June 9th, the volunteer firemen in the city of Milford who were active for 150 years have their memorial service on the green at exactly 1 o'clock. We march from the Milford Bank across the street to the Firemen's Memorial, and it would be nice to have people come there and visit the firemen that are still existing in the city of Milford. Thank you. That's all I have. Agenda item number 6, Mayor's report and recommendations. Is there a report from the mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, everyone. And thank you to the residents that came out tonight to express their concerns. My apologies for the technical difficulty that we're having with our microphones, but we're going to make the best of the situation. Happy summer, happy Pride Day. We raised a pride flag today. Last Sunday was Memorial Day. We celebrated and honored our fallen soldiers. We did a wreath laying at all the war monuments, and the parade kicked off at 2 o'clock. And I must tell you, it was a great turnout. It was probably the best ever. So big shout out to our veterans. And Pirate Day. Pirate Day was this past Sunday, and that's a great event. Actually, Mayor Riccitelli is the one that commissioned Pirate Day. He started it, and it's grown, and it's fabulous. I mean, it attracts all the Milford families, and people from surrounding towns come to celebrate Pirate Day, and our downtown merchants are very generous. They give out gifts to the kids. The kids follow a treasure map. The pirates did capture me, but they spared me. I told them I have a lot of work to do. I need to stabilize taxes. I need to work on economic development. I need to make sure that Milford's safe for all its residents. So they were very kind. They were very kind, very kind. So upcoming events, the graduations are coming up this month. So I want to congratulate all of our high school graduates, elementary school, middle school. It's a busy time of the year for families. So, I look forward to attending these graduations. On June 8th at Foreign High School at 9 a.m., there's a Dash for Danny. It's a 5K. It's been going on, and it's well attended. So if you have the time to attend that, I highly recommend it. And June 14th at 12 p.m. here at City Hall, we're going to do the Juneteenth committee flag raising. I'm also looking forward to that event. And on June 15th, the next day, they're going to have a Juneteenth celebration on the Milford Green. And that's also well attended, and that's growing. So it'll be a great time. I look forward to it. And June 22nd, starting at 4 p.m., is to kick off the summer celebration, which is downtown Milford. And that's always a big one. We'll have, food trucks and all that kind of stuff. I believe fireworks, right? We're going to have fireworks. We do put on a great fireworks show here in Milford. I'm very proud of that. And, things are going very well. The beaches are well attended. The weather's been great. The splash pad is open. The pickleball courts are busy. We have a lot of amenities here in Milford, the golf course, the harbor. It's a great place in the summer, and I encourage all of you to get out there and enjoy it. So, with that being said, Mr. Chairman, I do have an appointment before the board. It's a mayor's appointment. It's Brandon Mark. Is Brandon here tonight? Hello, Brandon. How are you? Good to see you. Brandon lives at 203 Broad Street, Unit 3A, and he's being recommended to be appointed as a member of the Energy Advisory Board, and he was highly recommended. So we look forward to the work that you're going to do for us here in the city, and we encourage people like Brandon to get involved. So thank you for your service and for the time that you'll be volunteering. And with that being said, does Brandon need to get sworn in by the city clerk? So Brandon, why don't you step forward? Oh, we gotta vote on it first. No, I don't think, do we vote on this one? There's no vote. No vote. Brandon, you're safe. Come on up.
I gotta speak in the mic, okay? I'll have you raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or sincerely affirm that you will faithfully execute and discharge your duties according to law as a member of the Energy Advisory Board of the City of Milford to the best of your ability, so help you God?
I do.
Wonderful. Congratulations.
Congratulations. Thank you so much. So, last but not least, I would ask the board for their consideration for items 8A through 8D in tonight's agenda. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the microphone. We'll move on to agenda item number 7, Alderman Pacelli, unfinished business.
Item number 7A, Board of Aldermen approval is requested for the 2022 State Homeland Security Grant Program Region 2 Memorandum of Agreement, and that the city enter into with and deliver to the State of Connecticut Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security any and all documents which it deems to be necessary or appropriate, and that the mayor is authorized to take all steps necessary, including the signing of all documents to effectuate said memorandum of understanding.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to thank my colleagues on the Aldermanic Board for having left this on the agenda for 2 months running so that I could have some discussions and with various people from the federal and the state agencies, including Homeland Security and the Department of Emergency Management. And I think I circulated to a whole lot of folks my markup of the agreement, which left me with certain substantial concerns. And over the 3 different meetings we had with the various department people involved, I had 59 numbered questions, which I think I had given to everybody, and they took their time and they responded to each of those 59 questions. Some of them were I thought, very thoughtful and allayed my concerns, but for the most part, they simply confirmed some of the difficulties that I saw embedded in the whole document. In particular, I think it's something we talked about briefly before. The document has attached to it as its core term an Appendix A, which is blank. And the Department of Homeland Security it's built right into the document, has indicated that they will fill in that Appendix A after we vote on this, after the mayor signs it. And without any notification to us, they will amend it. They will decide what goes on it and what things we are going to be responsible for pursuant to the rest of the terms of this agreement. There are a series of provisions in this agreement, at least 9 of them, that bind the city of Milford to certain obligations and expenses which cannot be quantified. They can't put a number on them. They don't even know what the obligations are going to entail because the items to which they will apply have not yet been identified. So I had 2 major concerns. One is that the primary element, the primary term of this agreement was in blank and was going to be filled out by the Department of Homeland Security and certain other people after we approve it and after it is signed. And then second, that it was going to bind the city to obligations with respect to those items that we have no way of knowing what they are. Both the federal and state people and the city folks, both from the fire department, the city attorney's office, were very forthcoming, and they worked with me to develop answers to all of my questions. In full fairness to the board, when we started that, the Department of Homeland Security and these other folks said, we would never do anything that Milford wouldn't want to do. And obviously my concern is that they would add something to that Appendix A that would be adverse to what Milford might want. And they said they would never do anything that Milford wouldn't want. When we got to the end of our discussions, and I suggested that I wanted to offer a couple of amendments, which I have now circulated here and hopefully you all have in front of you, the reaction from the federal people, the Homeland Security, and the state people from the Department of Emergency Management was what I termed visceral. They were hostile. And they said if any amendments to this are made, they said they will terminate our arrangement. They will not provide us with access to whatever assets they are considering purchasing. Moreover, they said they would also revoke all prior agreements and take back whatever other assets may have been purchased at an earlier time. Now, I point out the tension there that at the inception of our discussions, they kept saying they would never do anything that Milford didn't want to be done. By the end of the discussion, they said, we are going to do something that Milford affirmatively does not want to do. We will penalize you, whether you like it or not. So I share that with you because I have amendments here that I fully intend to offer, notwithstanding this admonition. It didn't feel like an admonition, frankly. It felt like a threat. It felt like a threat from a federal bureaucracy, the Homeland Security folks, who are driven by policy considerations that have nothing to do with what's better for Milford, other than its general things that they would consider generally good for all of society. Basically what they're saying here is that you will take this or you will leave it. And if you don't want to participate, just don't. And there was an earlier time, I think, when Fred Listman was mayor, when we didn't take these kinds of grants at all because these kinds of strings, I don't deem these to be strings. These are binders. They've got us bound up something terrible here. They will tell us what assets they are going to purchase. They will fill out the Exhibit A, and then they will tell us how to implement all these responsibilities that they're giving to us. Now look, I know that there's a fair amount of money involved. I know the fire chief is very supportive of this because it's here on the agenda. I assume the mayor is supportive of it too. For those of us who are attorneys, I know there's a difference between government and being a government attorney and government law and private sector. In the private sector, I don't think there's any attorney that would say, sign this document and give it to the other side and let them fill in all the material terms that will bind you in the future. That's like, holy cow. Now I know that a couple of my colleagues have said, hey, Wynn, weren't you city attorney when these kinds of contracts came through many years ago? And to tell you the truth, 15 years ago when I was city attorney, I don't remember any contract like this. So I can't tell you what I would have said or thought at that point in time. But I do know that dealing with federal and state and local bureaucracies, that programs change over time, and so do forms. I tend to doubt that this form came before us 15 years ago. My experience is bureaucrats change forms every year, sometimes for reasons none of us know or can understand. But even if this was exactly the same form, and even if the city attorney's office were to open its files to me and say, hey, here's what you looked at 15 years ago, and maybe it refreshed my recollection that this actually came before us, my job back then was to read these documents, go into the mayor's office, sit down with him in the confidence of the mayor's office, and give him my best advice and recommendations. And if he was to turn to me and say, I want to move forward with this notwithstanding your concerns, he was my client, I would do what he said. I'm not in that position anymore. And frankly, I would still be bound by the attorney-client privilege, even if I remembered what exactly we talked about on this thing 15 years ago. And I doubt the present city attorney or mayor would waive that privilege so I could discuss what it was that I might have recommended to an earlier mayor. But right now, I've been elected as an alderman to bring my life experiences to bear upon those things which are presented to us. And my life's experience as an attorney, looking at a contract that is got its main provisions in blank and handing it to the other party and saying, you fill that in whenever you want, however you want, and we'll live by it. That causes me great concern. So that's all as backdrop for all of you. So that I'm going to offer an amendment here, and then we can maybe talk about it, or do you want to talk about it beforehand? I see a hand going up over here. It's up. Yeah. So then let me put the amendment here, and we can talk about the amendment. Okay. I've got amendment number 1, which I've handed out to all of you, which says the following, which says, when any item is added to Appendix A, this amended Appendix A shall be presented to the mayor, to the Milford mayor for execution, which shall signify the consent of the city of Milford to such additional item, and the mayor may decline to execute the same, which will signify the refusal of the city of Milford to have this memorandum agreement apply to such addition. And that's my amendment.
Second.
And microphone.
We're still on the discussion on the.
Seconded, now we can discuss this.
We're going to discuss the amendment.
Thank you, Chairman Vicho, through you to Alderman Smith. Based upon your communications with, as I'll just say, the other sides, it sounds as if you believe you were told to take it or leave it. And so what I'm not quite clear on is if we were today to pass any sort of approval of this document with Amendment 1, Amendment 2, whatever amendment it may be, we would then essentially be making a counter proposal on the agreement that then has to go back to the other side for consideration. That would then, I guess, if they said yes, we would be able to go forward and sign it. But if we already know that they've told you, and again, I'm not putting words in your mouth, I'm just not clear. If they've already told you, do not come back to us with an agreement with any changes. If you do, there is no agreement, there is no grant, and we're going to do X, Y, and Z, then I don't know why we're having that discussion. It might just be a yes, we'll approve it as it is, or no, we won't. So I just would like some clarity on that point, so I understand what I may want to do here.
Thank you. They weren't quite as emphatic as that, and at the beginning of our discussions, they seemed to indicate there was some flexibility. And at the end of our discussions, they seemed to say this other thing, which was no amendments at all. And frankly, I don't think, part of me says here that I think that they were telling me that because they don't want a whole bunch of different towns making different amendments. And this First Amendment in particular strikes me as so innocuous. All it says is that the Milford mayor gets a second look at the thing when they begin to add stuff. I suspect that this will be okay with them. And if it's not, they'll tell us repeal it, or else you can't go forward with it. So I wanted to share with you in toto, what they said to me. What my impression was, they were issuing a bit of a threat. Not even a bit of a threat. They were saying, "Don't you dare amend this." And so I'm calling them out. I'm ringing the bell. I'm saying, even this innocuous, reasonable amendment is something you wouldn't consider, which is that the city of Milford would have the opportunity to look at these things and say, yes, we do want that, and no, we don't. No one can disagree with that. And so, yes, I'm offering it up, notwithstanding their threats, and I would like to see us vote on it, and I would like to see us, frankly, pass it. It's a safeguard. It's a check and balance. I don't trust the Department of Homeland Security to do what's in Milford's best interests. I trust the mayor to do what's in Milford's best interest and this board, but not them.
Is there any more discussion on the amendment? Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the city attorney, have you reviewed this and the original contract and agreement with Department of Homeland Security, and what is your opinion on this particular matter? I'll get it, Tony. Do you find this necessary?
Through you, Mr. Chair, Alderman Healy, when you say this, are you referring to the amendment? Yes. I haven't seen it. I just saw it now. But I'll answer you a little longer. Okay. Just by way of background, this Homeland Security grant program, I believe, was commenced in 2004. I know that this board, not this current composition, has approved the document exactly in the form it's presented at least 7 times since 2009, a few times before that. The document is unchanged. There's no change to the document. I do agree with Alderman Smith. I don't think that this is a negotiable document. They wouldn't say that as much. Just for your edification, and it's just to put it out there, the deadline, there's a stamp that says September 30th. That's not for you. That's for the fiduciary, which is Region 2. Milford is one of 30 towns that make up Region 2 as part of the DEMIS, Department of Emergency Management, Homeland Security, which is Connecticut's version of Homeland Security. This is a federal document, not a state document, but DEMIS, the state entity, manages this federal grant. This document, in essence, is a grant condition document. It allows us, along with 29 other communities in Region 2, to participate in the federal grants made available to us.
Thank you for that clarification. To the chair, in a prior employment, I worked for Sacred Heart University in the capacity of Executive Director for Emergency Management, Public Safety, and Campus Operations. We entered into Homeland Security grant agreement programs on behalf of the university. I was there for over 10 years and never had an issue with any of the grants administered on the federal side and additionally through the state. I don't see this amendment as presented as necessary for us at this time. Thank you.
May I have it? Chair Vitro. Thank you, Chair Vitro, through you. To our city attorney, did I hear you say that this grant arrangement began in 2004? And then again in 2009, there's been several changes, and we've accepted that like several times or 7 times, is that? No changes. Right, I mean, there's been no changes in it, but the document has been utilized each time without any changes. So they, in essence, have the options to add things to it, but they've never added anything that Milford's been unhappy with. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the board, I just want to raise a concern, and I'm struggling with using the right words to explain this. But I'm concerned, first of all, I think that it's a grant, right? So it's a document that supports a grant, and we are going to be, happy to accept something that is funded, that we don't have to fund ourselves. So, and it seems that the fire chief, Fabrizi, is building a partnership with Homeland Security. And what I'm struggling with tonight is I'm a little concerned that one alderman met with the people who are going to be making the decisions about this grant and had a meeting that I'm struggling with the words, maybe was, unfriendly, maybe a little bit on the hostile side, and that makes me very uncomfortable. I'm good? Okay. When one person is going out and representing the city that way. So I guess my question would be to the mayor and the city attorney if we can ensure that the folks at Homeland Security understand that this is not necessarily the view of the entire board or the entire city administration. Thank you.
Through you, Chairperson Vitro, to the board. I guess I'm being concrete, but I'm reading this as a grant application for federal funding. I may augment Alderman Healy's remarks that it's a regional grant, and to quote the city attorney, we may opt out of it. And that's the question before us, whether or not we want to be included in the 30 towns within that region that receive federal monies. We can opt out from that, I suppose, and that's the discussion. But I don't understand how we can put a rider on the grant, and that's what I'm saying. And the points are well taken, that it's binding, there are expenses and obligations not yet identified, but we've had some track record in this, and there's some largesse from getting that federal funding for security. So I'm not sure about the point of order of having the amendment. I appreciate that it's written. I always think that it should be into the public record, but perhaps we should have had it beforehand. Then we could have discussed it more in caucus in relation to the agenda. I'm not sure what the purpose of now discussing this amendment rather than looking at the entire picture. Thank you.
Any more discussion on the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to make sure that no one misunderstood. Over 3 different hours of discussion on 3 different days, we had a very nice discussion. It was not hostile. The people were very forthcoming. The city attorney's office was full participant. The fire department was a full participant. There were 2 people there who were from Milford on the other side of the discussion. One of them was even friends of my family. At the end, only when I said I would like to offer these amendments was there this visceral reaction. And it wasn't that this was a difficult thing. It wasn't. They were all very forthcoming and very helpful.
Thank you. Just to clarify, I wasn't referring to what Alderman Federico said, right or wrongly, but we weren't privy to any of this. Not the city attorney's meeting with you. Was the majority chairs invited? This is the first we've heard of it. So at the end, so it's a discussion that is new to us now. But you weren't charged with by this board to pursue this. I would love to hear what the city attorney has to say and the mayor about this, if anything.
Bring it over. Yeah.
I'll be brief. I think this came up on the agenda a couple months ago. Alderman Smith had a list of questions. He asked if I could answer them. I said I wasn't the author of the document, but I could put him in touch with people, and I'd happy to facilitate a meeting, and we facilitated a meeting. Obviously, it wasn't a public meeting. It was one alderman had questions, and he had 59 of them, as he said. So it took a few meetings. I thought the conversations were thoughtful. I don't know if Alderman Smith got the answers he wanted, but he did get the answers to questions he asked. So I thought it was they were good meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. You know, it just seems like it's common sense that if something's going to be bought for the city of Milford, we should have some understanding of what it would be. But yet, as I heard from Alderman Smith, that Homeland Security and the Department of Emergency Management said, hey, this is a slippery slope. You either take it or you get nothing. So this is the way it operates. Is this the way the operation, the federal government operates? And even on our state level, it operates this way. So do we really have a choice, even if we get a little bit that we don't have to spend money for? And I think one of the things that we got was the sign, that mobile sign near the fire department that announces a variety of activities that can go on in the city. So I think, you know, it is a slippery slope, but we're between a rock and a hard place. The federal government is taking their ball and going home. So we either say, yes, we like these little amenities, or we say, no, we don't want anything. So in this case, I would have to be positive to the grant and saying a little bit is better than nothing. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the board. Personally, I like the amendments. I like the idea that they offer the opportunity for our mayor to make decisions on what is best for our city. But it does sound to me like that is just not an option, and that we are affording Homeland Security carte blanche. It has worked out in the past. I pray that it continues to, and that we're not forced to pay for or take on burdens as a requirement of this agreement. But it doesn't sound like we have the choice to really make changes. And I do know that the fire department has utilized this grant in the past successfully, is interested in pursuing it again this year. And that as a regional grant, and us being solely a member of that region, do we want to be labeled as the problem city with regard to moving forward with it? So again, conceptually, I do support these amendments, but practically, I agree with Alderman Vitale that I unfortunately think we have to pass it as is.
Where's it going?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So hearing some more background from Alderman Smith and the city attorney. So I did not understand or realize initially that the city attorney's office was a full participant in the meeting. So I am glad to hear that. I think my concern stemmed from the point when Alderman Smith earlier described something that was said at the meeting as a threat from the liberal bureaucracy. That's where it starts to feel like it's more about politics and, you know, not necessarily about a concern about the grant. And I would not want, again, the folks who are making the decisions on this grant to feel in any way that this is something that we don't want in the city of Milford, because I think we very much want this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman Vitro, through you to the city attorney. And just, again, looking at the document and sort of thinking through a bit about what the Appendix A and this blank, which really states it's an amendment to Appendix A, it appears to me that this document deals with perhaps as a city that would be subject to or benefiting from the grants, there's issues with the other side, the department, determining where the assets that we would otherwise not benefit from may be kept and or utilized. And so really, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's really what's at issue here. It's not, are we going to be required to do something we don't want to do? Are we going to have a cost we're not aware of? Are we going to be in some negative place? We're already in a in a positive place, I believe, by virtue of the fact that we have access to assets that we otherwise wouldn't have access to. And then there is some custodial arrangement, whether we keeping them in Milford or they going elsewhere. And that's sort of what I think I'm looking at. And if that's really true, then I don't know that I'm as concerned about being told where that asset we have access to is stored.
Mr. Chair, through you to Alderman Baselli. Yes, I think you hit the nail on the head. So these assets that we're talking about, these are regional assets. We're one of 30 communities. By signing this agreement, you now have access to assets held by custodial owners. Okay? Milford, for example, is the custodial owner for several Region 2 assets. The hazmat truck, the signboard. Our obligation is to make sure that they're stored safely, securely. If there's a light bulb out in the sign truck, if the hazmat truck needs its oil changed, we do that. There are other community assets held by other towns that are part of Region 2. So if you look at page 3 of the document, it says, and this is to Alderman Smith's point, City of Milford has agreed to operate as a custodial owner of the assets described in Appendix A. And the issue is the Appendix A is left blank because the grant has not yet purchased the assets that we may have. Region 2 will not buy will not buy an asset and force it on us. There will be input from the mayor, presumably from his experts, which would be the fire chief, the emergency management director, and the police chief, and those people to say, hey, this is what we want. We want to take it, and if there is some financial costs, he would have to work with Peter and potentially with you. This is agreeing to maintain those costs. Now, that's in paragraph 4. It says the parties agree the city may operate. It's not binding us to operate. We have to agree at some level, perhaps not at the board, which I think may be Alderman Smith's point. I just wanted to give you an idea of the custodial assets. The city's not the owner of any of these assets. Region 2 is. We are one of 30 communities within Region 2.
Just to follow up, so we're sharing regional assets, and as the mayor, I can tell you best practice would be to have the ability to have those resources. If there is an emergency, we will need these resources. So I would advise you to vote in favor of it as presented. Thank you.
I just want to add one thing that I want to share. I've always been under the impression that the never kick a gift horse in the mouth. And this is actually a gift from Homeland Security for the 30 cities of the region to take advantage of. I think that if we don't accept what they want to give us, it'll be a mistake. And I trust the mayor that once they give you the opportunity of one of their assets, we should take advantage of it.
Where's this going?
This actually is going to go to Scott.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, through you, just to the board, I just wanted to maybe look at this just slightly differently. And I want to first of all just thank Alderman Smith because he's done his due diligence into this. A lot of times we look at these and these come before us and I'm not sure we all know exactly what's in them, but Alderman Smith has taken the time to look at this and to go through it. And I don't know about everyone else here, but I've learned something about what this grant is really about just from the discussion we've had through the city attorney explaining a little bit more about it. So I too would agree with Alderman Vitale and Alderman Jenkins that I understand what the amendments are, but I would have to say at this point that we should be voting for this as is.
Thank you, Alderman Marlowe. Any other discussion on the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to the board. Again, under Article 1, the summary description of the award that will be of benefit regionally to all our participants is $4,847,500. So as we've indicated here, those are going to be shared assets in the event of any type of a catastrophic emergency. These funds will be of benefit to our complete region. So I ask that you, as chair, move the question. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Healy. I'm going to take this to a vote. The discussion is over. On the amendment, this is, just to clarify, all those in favor? The motion, the amendment as amended. All those in favor? All those opposed? Roll call vote. Madam Secretary, please. Just remind everybody, we are voting on the amendment only at this time.
Alderman Archiola? Alderman Beatty? Alderman Bevan? Alderman Casey? Alderman Federico? Alderman Fowler? Alderman Healy? Alderman Jenkins? Alderman Marlowe? Alderman Mulrennan? Alderman Pacelli? Alderman Smith? Alderman Vitro?
No.
Alderman Vitale? Alderman Willis? 3 yeses, 12 noes.
3 yeses, 12 no. The amendment fails. Now on the original motion, all those in favor? What do you have? Oh, you have another amendment? Okay. We have a second amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a second amendment here, which I would like to read out and then summarize. The second amendment that says, with respect to sections 1B1, 1C1, 1D, 2A2, 2B, 2C4, 2C9, and 2C11, the Milford Board of Aldermen may, by affirmative majority vote, opt out of having the city comply with any of these said sections.
Second.
And Mr. Chairman, just to explain a couple of things here on this, I would like to address one statement that was said earlier. I never use the term liberal bureaucracy. I think somebody's trying to hear what they want to hear. I think what I said was federal bureaucracy, not liberal bureaucracy. These sections, and one of the I have no illusions that this amendment's going to pass. I'm calling out these sections in particular because should the day ever come when Homeland Security purchases assets that the city of Milford doesn't like and then adds them to this appendix, which we will have no ability to stop, these will be the sections that will become operative in binding Milford into a series of obligations and costs that we may not want to incur or be responsible for. And so I don't find persuasive the argument of this is the way we've always done it. I think you ought to have good reasons why it's always been done this way. I also don't find persuasive the argument that, well, this has never been a problem before, when you can see a way that it might become a problem. These amendments are designed to give Milford a check and balance against a problem that admittedly the federal bureaucracy has been benign since its inception of this program. But federal bureaucracies are not always benign. just my discussions with them over 3 different hours, they were nice and friendly the whole time, until they weren't. And when that day comes, I want these amendments to give people a roadmap as to where Milford needs to go to be insulated and protected from whatever may happen. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
There was a second on that, correct? I just want to refresh my hearing. Any discussion on the Second Amendment? Alderman Vitale.
Alderman Smith, you had indicated that in your discussion. Alderman Smith, thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Mr. Smith, Alderman Smith, in your discussion, you had indicated the fact that, again, the slippery slope, between a rock and a hard place, they're going to take their ball and they're going to go home. Did they not say that any amendment to this would rescind, they could rescind this whole grant? And just a clarification on that.
They said words to that effect. I went back into the agreement and tried to find areas that would allow them to actually carry out that threat, and I didn't really find them. I suppose they could terminate the whole agreement and then back out of it in that fashion. They also said things like, you know, we would revoke all your earlier Appendix A's as well, meaning that they would kind of roll back through all of the agreements and revoke all of them. And so they also, you know, so all of you know, and I'm not hiding anything, they also said they're holding up other grants to see how this one goes. And if that doesn't emphasize the very issue that I'm trying to get all of us to address, what does? They are already holding these things over our head as threats. This is the federal government, the Homeland Security. They're not looking out for Milford. They're looking out for what they would deem to be a bigger picture. And these things are designed to give us an ability to check and balance against them. Thank you.
Any more discussion on the Second Amendment?
To the chair, thank you to the board members. I'm looking at this, and again, you know, our track record has been positive. My personal track record with dealing on federal grants through Homeland Security has been positive. You're talking about a situation where something might be totally egregious, you know, in nature. I don't think that would be there. And our defense would be our very competent legal department for the city of Milford to intercede. This would end up as a civil matter, and could be, if there was something that the mayor objected to, we would have an opportunity to address this in court. I recommend we move the question.
Is there any more discussion on the Second Amendment? Okay, we're going to vote on the Second Amendment. All in favor? Opposed? Roll call vote, Madam Secretary. Got to get frequent flyer miles.
Alderman Archiola? Alderman Beatty? Alderman Bevan? Alderman Casey? Alderman Federico? No. Alderman Fowler? Yes. Alderman Healy? No. Alderman Jenkins? No. Alderman Marlowe? No. Oh, sorry. Alderman Morenon? No. Alderman Picelli? No. Alderman Smith? Yes. Alderman Vitro? No. Alderman Vitale? No. Alderman Willis? 3 yes, 12 no.
12 no, 3 yes. The Second Amendment fails. On the original motion, all in favor? Opposed? Roll call vote, Madam Secretary. Should have stayed there.
Alderman Archiola? Alderman Beatty? Alderman Bevan? Yes. Alderman Casey? Yes. Alderman Federico? Yes. Alderman Fowler? No. Alderman Healy? Yes. Alderman Jenkins? Alderman Marlowe? Alderman Morenin? Alderman Pacelli? Alderman Smith? Alderman Vitro?
Yes.
Alderman Vitale? Alderman Willis? 13 yes, 2 no.
13 yes, 2 no. The amendment passes. The motion passes, sorry. Alderman Pacelli. Eight, 8A.
Agenda item 8A, pursuant to Article 2, Section 6 of the Charter of the City of Milford, Board of Aldermen approval is requested for the appointment of Peter Smith, 65 Oldfield Lane, to complete the unexpired term of City Clerk Karen Fortunati, effective immediately.
Mr. Smith, would you like to come up to the podium? What did he say? He had something to say about his resume. You had some kind of clarification you wanted to make us aware of on your resume?
I saw you pass it around. Thank you. Yeah, there was a typographical error on the resume, and it's a simple one. It basically says have been the owner of Rome Smith and Lutz for 30 years or so, and I am in the process of retiring. It actually says I've retired. I just wanted to be clear that it's in the process. It hasn't happened yet. It will be soon. Details matter.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Motion was made and seconded, right? The motion was made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Alderman Jenkins.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. If I could just offer a few words. So for the past few months, this Board of Aldermen has endured, I would say, unprecedented partisanship when it comes to the appointments to the city's various boards and commissions. And when Mayor Giannatasio presented his nominations to the board, my Democratic colleagues denied several nominees the chance to serve Milford. However, they gave no clear reason as to why someone should be prohibited to serve our community. In fact, they even agreed the nominations were qualified. So by not offering a credible disqualifying explanation for the mayor's nominees, I believe that they crippled the fabric of the community by introducing politics into this otherwise neighborly process, because Milford has for decades accepted appointments and or filled in vacancies regardless of political affiliation, unless if it was something truly disagreeable about a nominee, if something truly disagreeable was brought forward. So, cynically, one could view those no votes as such, an attempt to embarrass the new Republican mayor by letting him know who really controls the levers of power. But regardless of intent, what resulted from those no votes remains the same. People showed up that night thinking that they were going to be sworn in, and they were frankly embarrassed. And there was partisanship that was injected into a process where it hasn't belonged and shouldn't belong. Now, or we could be vindictive and vote against Pete Smith. After all, he's a Democrat, I'm a Republican. But if we are to have any healing or true collaboration, we are more than the political party to which we subscribe. We are neighbors first, Democrats and Republicans second. So I'm choosing to honor the prior boards of aldermen, to honor the precedent that the Democrats earlier this year disregarded, because Milford citizens deserve more than political battles and less partisanship. So this is a show of good faith to our citizens that, while maybe Pete and I might disagree politically, I hope this moment turns a page and we can actually strive for collaboration, especially when the mayor puts forward more nominations in the near future. Thank you.
Alderman Pacelli.
Thank you, Chairman Vitro. I have to say, through you to Alderman Fowler, I found that to be a very distasteful way of addressing the issue that is before us today. I think without dragging this into a further discussion that's probably best left unhad, it's relevant to point out that this is a different situation than the one you're speaking of earlier, and to again indicate that it's simply partisanship is inappropriate, untrue, and has been something that we've made very clear from the start when dealing with those other appointments. So I just want to make that clear. This is really not an appropriate time for that type of conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Pacelli. Any more discussion on the motion? Alderman Healy.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the board, I am disappointed in Alderman Fowler's comments relative to this. The mayor does make recommendations. He has the authority under the charter to make specific appointments that do not require the Board of Aldermen to vote on it. We look at the candidates that are presented. We take it very seriously in terms of our role and our responsibility to vote and approve, people that are well qualified for the positions, and it was articulated during previous meetings, the history, the knowledge, and the service that these other appointees have given to the city of Milford. And you disparage them in such comments and create partisanship. So I'm disappointed in that, and I think we should move forward with this appointment. And I'm certainly open to discussing with you and any other members on the other side of this board any other further appointments that the mayor has withheld that should be moved forward, and we'll look forward to those discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Vitro. Through you, to the board and to the members out in the audience, I like to shift the focus for what we're really here to discuss, and that is the city clerk. And I'd like to start off by expressing my gratitude to Karen Fortunati for her years of service. Karen has earned our admiration and respect, and she was a revered public servant and a friend to many of us, and she will be missed. Pete Smith is a man of character, varied experience, broad knowledge, and certainly brings competency to the role of city clerk. Like Karen and those of the city clerk before her, I believe that I have great confidence that Pete Smith will also maintain the standards of integrity in the role of our next city clerk. I welcome Pete in this role, and I believe he is an excellent choice for our next city clerk.
Thank you, Alderman Morenin. Alderman Bevan.
Thank you, Chairman. Through you. Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry. Mr. Smith and I have had numerous conversations. I find him to be an honorable man, and we both have more or less agreed that this position of city clerk is really a non-political position, to where if you go to get your dog license or wedding license, they do not ask you if you're Republican or a Democrat. What it does bring up is the fact that many people think that this position and other items that are in the city charter really should be changed. We haven't had a charter revision since 1983, which is over 40 years ago. I have come up with a series of recommendations for the mayor if he decides to bring up a city charter to which would be beneficial for the city of Milford, which would employ Republicans, Democrats, Independents. With that, I'm saying to the mayor, if he would like to contact me, I'm available. But thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman Bevan. Any more discussion on the motion?
I know that Peter just came in and said he isn't retired yet. The city clerk's job is a full-time job. When he's sworn in, I mean, can we ask, are you going to retire the day that you're sworn in? I see you nodding your head in the background there. Yeah, well, can he address it? So I think what I heard there is you're going to be fully retired from your prior job before you take this job. Is he getting sworn in tonight?
He's good.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any more discussion on the motion? I'd like to just add that I've known Mr. Smith for quite some time, and I've never known him to be anything less than very honest and sincere, and I think he'd handle this job very, very well. So with that, I'm going to put it to a vote. All in favor? Opposed? Vote is unanimous. Mr. Smith, come to the podium, and the city clerk, the temporary city clerk, will swear you in.
Rose wasn't able to come tonight. Hi. All right. Do you solemnly swear or sincerely affirm that you will faithfully execute and discharge your duties and responsibilities according to law as the next Milford City Clerk to the best of your ability, so help you God? I do. Wonderful. Congratulations.
At this time, our newly confirmed city clerk will take the place of the acting city clerk. Once you are sworn in, you are now our city clerk. Sit over there. And this young lady could actually go home if she like. Welcome Peter Smith to the new role of city clerk. Thank you. Alderman Pacelli, agenda item 8B.
Agenda item 8B. Board of Aldermen approval is requested for the attached resolution regarding Milford Board of Education concerning school construction grant for Jonathan Law High School improvements, Child Learning Center program space, 2024.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Oh, Alderman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the Finance Director, I have two questions. One, how much is this grant for? And second, is this the bond proposal that the board voted on earlier?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to Alderman Smith. Yes, this is related to the bond ordinance that was previously approved by the Board of Aldermen. And these resolutions I've seen before in the past, and I'm sure many of you are familiar with them. They're required by the state in order for the city to be able to apply for grant reimbursement through the school construction grant program. Thank you. I don't recall the exact amount. We bond a specific amount for construction, a portion for financing, and then it depends on the reimbursement rate percentage that is set by the state, and they review the expenses to see what is allowable. So I don't have the exact amount at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Eridisi. So I voted against this last time, and I voted against it because of the presentation given by the Board of Education people. The superintendent was for a bonding of some $7.5 million for what seemed like a nice idea. It wasn't backed up by any facts. It didn't have any metrics for failure or success. And it didn't even have a plan that we could consider with any concreteness. So for all the reasons that I voted against this earlier, I'm going to be voting against this here tonight. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any more discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed? Roll call vote, Madam Secretary.
Alderman Archiola? Alderman Beatty? Alderman Bevan? Alderman Casey? Alderman Federico? Alderman Fowler? Alderman Healy? Alderman Jenkins? Alderman Marlowe? Alderman Morenin? Alderman Pacelli? Alderman Smith? Alderman Vitro? Alderman Vitale? Alderman Willis? 13 yes, 2 no.
13 yes, 2 no. Motion passes. Alderman Pacelli, agenda item 8C.
Agenda item 8C, Board of Aldermen approval is requested for the attached resolution regarding Milford Board of Education concerning school construction grant for technical education facility and equipment alterations, upgrades, and improvements to Joseph A. Foran High School and Jonathan Law High School, 2024.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Alderman Smith.
Again, this is to Finance Director Eridisi. This is an earlier, it's the same as the earlier one, which I think was like in the $3 million range, somewhere in there. Okay, so I will be voting against this one again for the same reasons I said before. This one also, as I recall, the discussion with the superintendent had the additional flaw that the only reason it was given for is because the superintendent thought that she had heard the governor of the state of Connecticut say somewhere that this was a good idea, so we should try it too. It's a bad reason to be spending millions of dollars on behalf of the citizens of Milford, for which they will have to repay with interest. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Is there any more discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Roll call vote, Madam Secretary. It's okay, you could just take my. It's okay, I'll do all the walking.
Alderman Archiola? Alderman Beatty? Alderman Bevan? Alderman Casey? Alderman Federico? Alderman Fowler? Alderman Healy? Alderman Jenkins? Alderman Marlowe? Alderman Morenin? Alderman Pacelli? Alderman Smith? Alderman Vitro?
Yes.
Alderman Vitale? Alderman Willis? 13 yes, 2 no.
13 yes, 2 no, motion passes. Alderman Pacelli, agenda item 8D.
Agenda item 8D, Board of Aldermen approval is requested following the approval of the Planning and Zoning Commission pursuant to Section 8-24 of the Connecticut General Statutes for the abandonment of the extension of William Street, a paper street, and to authorize the city attorney and mayor to take all steps necessary, including signing all documents to effectuate said abandonment. The city shall retain storm drain and sanitary sewer easements pursuant to the city engineer's recommendations dated April 29th, 2024.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Alderman Archiola.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. I know that residents of William Street came here to voice some concerns, and I also see Mr. Thornburg here, and I'm wondering if, obviously, you came prepared, and we'd love to hear your plan for the property. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Good to see so many familiar faces here tonight. People of William Street, thanks for coming. I'm happy to kind of give you a little bit of a breakdown of what we're planning here. So a little background about me. Obviously, a lot of you know me here, but I was a resident of Milford for the last 30 years. About 6 months ago, I moved to Stratford. I have a business out here called Total Lawn Care that I started 15 years ago when I was 20 years old. So one of the problems in Milford is that there's not much in the form of warehouse space for small businesses like my own. Currently, I rent from D'Amato Brothers Builders, and I should be speaking to the board as well. So currently, I rent from D'Amato Brothers Builders. As you all know, they're one of the largest commercial renters in the city. I've been there for 8 years, and every time I would call them and say, I need more space because my business can't continue to grow, they say, well, we're at 97 or 100% occupancy. So unfortunately, well, I guess fortunately, I mean, I had to go ahead and kind of build my own spot. Okay, so what we did was I purchased 0 William Street, okay, about 6 months or so ago, maybe a year ago, with the idea that I would be building a warehouse, a small warehouse to store equipment, and also I think of it as like an incubator for small businesses like my own, plumbers, electricians, people that are mainly there, 7 to 6 at night, okay? I understand that in the past there was applications for AAA 24-hour road service. This is nothing like that. This is meant to be something that is pretty much low impact on the neighborhood, but is also going to be something that's going to be good for small businesses like my own in the community looking to grow. I definitely respect, as someone who's lived in Milford for 30 years, I respect you all, and I respect the idea that You don't want to lose that tree line buffer that's there. It's significant. It is something that definitely helps to keep the noise down in the trains, in the train lights and everything. I grew up on the trains, basically on the train tracks, so I understand how that can be. And that's one thing that I look to absolutely maintain there. There's a significant natural border there. I look to maintain that as much as possible. You can kind of get an idea for what we're building here, and I'll allow Attorney Crusaden, to tell you more about what this is. But again, as a taxpayer at Milford, by abandoning or discontinuing the street, it would also put this piece of property back on the tax roll as well. So I think it would be a benefit to help, keep the tax load down a little bit, for everyone. So if I may just point out a few things. So everything that we're doing here in the form of light industrial building, I mean, this is all, it is a limited industrial zone. It is something that I can do by right already. All I'm looking to do here if the city is, able to discontinue the road, would be to basically back some parking spaces up a little bit more, and then move a building a few feet back further down. So this is what I was planning on doing, whether or not we get the discontinuance or not. Only the discontinuance, again, would allow the property, the city, I don't think the city even owns the property, but it would allow that to go back on the tax record. I would be paying for it, and I would have a little more parking. So, any questions from the board?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. When you build your warehouse, is there a spot to keep the trees as that buffer? And could you add more trees to that area that would help the neighbors keep their sound down and also create an area that your warehouse would be large enough that everyone can be happy?
Yes, absolutely. Currently, there's around 20 feet or so of tree line there. And in the drawing that we've attached here that we're showing to everyone, there's at least a 20-foot buffer that's there. And we're going to maintain the tree line to the best of our ability. If there is an area that's opened up, or if some of the trees get taken down, we will add a significant buffer, again, because I know what it's like to live close to the train tracks, and I totally understand why you would want a buffer there. Anyone else?
Hi, Dan. Through you, Mr. Chair, to Dan. Dan, I can't just, because I can't read that from here, that drawing's a little fuzzy. Where is the entrance to this? Where is it off Munson, or not Munson, but which street? Because a couple people called me and asked where the entrance will be to this.
Yeah, so the entrance is
Okay. All right.
directly next to the Q spot.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Vitro, through you to Dan. Hi, Dan. Couple questions, and because we have to share the microphone, I'll ask both of them. The first question is, and maybe just can give me a yes on this. Did you say the name of your business is Total Lawn Care?
Yes, Total Lawn.
So do you do any snow removal? You do? Okay, because that was one of the concerns that was raised by some of the residents, so I wanted to ask that. So there is the potential then for some activity after 6 p.m. if we have snow plowing, storms during the late hours. I know, that's true. That is very true. Okay. So that you can talk more about that. And then my second question was, you made reference to having some other small businesses, like I think you said electricians or plumbers. Were you going to like be renting some space out to those individuals to help with small businesses as well as your own small business?
So, yes, so a lot of the larger building there, a good portion of that is going to be actually available for small businesses that kind of need a place to get started, live, grow. That's why I mentioned it is kind of like an incubator space. And as mentioned earlier, D'Amato, the largest lessee, is at like 97% capacity right now, and you know, there's not much space left at this point. So it's either you stifle your growth as a business, or you do something like this. Any further questions?
I'm looking at the site plan. I see where the building is currently. Is that what you're proposing, where it will be? And the number of businesses you're talking about that you might lease to, what are you anticipating? Is it 3, is it 4, is it 5? Based on square footage? It could be 10 to 15 businesses. If it's 10 to 15 businesses, how many of those businesses you think are going to have cars that are going to be required to come and go from there? Or are they all going to be relative to service related who don't have people coming in and out of that location? They have service trucks that are going to be leaving, coming and going.
Yeah, it's primarily not outfitted for an active business. It's more set up for storage, storing equipment. You know, there's enough parking spots here to kind of store, you know, an motor vehicle, but it's not set up to have a ton of parking, right? So it's, you know, you go to work in the morning, you know, you grab your whatever equipment you need, and you go out.
It's an excellent piece of property. It is light industrial. It's ripe for development. It would, you know, add value relative to the city tax rolls. It is service related, but the history of this and our constituents that are here from William Street have concerns, and you've said, I'm going to do the best I can to try and maintain. You're somewhat equivocating in terms of how many businesses may or may not be there. Then it's a matter of how many actually are going to be there, and then how many parking spaces are going to be required by zoning based on the size and scope of it. I mean, can you say tonight unequivocally that you will maintain a buffer that is there currently at a minimum, that buffer that's there now will absolutely be maintained, and that you may add additional buffer?
So Pat Rose, the engineer, allowed for a 20-foot buffer. So I don't know what the exact distance buffer is there, but I can tell you that there's going to be at least a 20-foot buffer. And as you all know, living there, the tree line is significant. It is significant. And I'm going to do my absolute best to maintain that with at least 20 feet. As far as the businesses go, it really depends on how large the business is. So it's set up with bays just like D'Amato Brothers buildings. One overhead bay, say 12 by 14, one door, single door for entry. So it's designed where we can kind of build separated walls to kind of fit the size of the business, which is why I really can't give you a total number of businesses that are there. I mean, it could be where one business comes in and says, okay, we want to rent the whole building. I don't know.
So you're currently working with your architect to formulate a final site plan, you know, for this? This is pretty much it.
It depends on whether the road is discontinued.
You mean the ability to be able to utilize the paper street, have it abandoned, and then that would be incorporated? You would modify this plan if you were given the 50% of that paper street?
No, this is what the plan will look like if you all discontinue. So this is what the plan would look like if you all were to discontinue the street tonight. And I'm going to pass this on to Attorney Crusade.
Yeah, just for the record, Kevin Crusade, an attorney for Dan Thornburg. My office is at 3 Lafayette Street in Milford. Just to follow up to Dan's answer on that, this is showing the site plan if the discontinuance were to be approved. So the uses and the size of the building in the back are all allowed under the zone whether the road's discontinued or not. It's actually more advantageous for the property owners for the road to be discontinued, because that way the city, and we have to go to planning and zoning next, which is another stop along the way, and there'll be, these concerns can be brought up again. But if the road's not discontinued, theoretically somebody could, one of the abutting property owners could pay to have that road improved to city standards, and it would run from Rowe Avenue through William Street. By discontinuing the road, that cuts off any possibility of that happening, and whether it's part of your approval or part of the planning and zoning approval with the additional buffer. So the William Street abandoned section is here. This is actually Finch Street that comes around here to the rest of William Street. So this is all, I think, treed and shrubbery and rough patch of land. So that's not even being touched. So you're going to have that as existing. Then there's the additional buffer that Dan was talking about and he's been talking about with his architect. So to confirm that there's never going to be any traffic from the light industrial district down to the residential section of William Street, the best option is to discontinue it. Then by state statute, half of the property of the ownership of the roadbed goes to each of the abutting property owners. And then it becomes just a right-of-way for just the abutting property owners to get out and access Rowe Avenue. If you had an opportunity to drive by it, it looks like a dirt bike path or something that's going into the property now. It's just a dirt driveway. It's a little bit hard to visualize it from the street, but if you came down, I came down William Street probably a couple of months ago to look at it, and to me, I don't know if it's changed or not, but it was treed and there was already a natural buffer there, but that's all in the city right-of-way. By abandoning this section, none of that's going to change, and then Dan's offered to do additional buffer over and above what the Planning and Zoning Board would require. So I don't know if there's any other questions that I can answer while I'm here. Yeah.
Thank you. You were at Planning and Zoning on May 7th? Yes. And former Alderman Anderson, who is currently a member of that board, again reiterated the concerns of the residents that were there, and also asked for the owner, Mr. Thornburg, to communicate with the William Street residents. And here we are, this evening to discuss this. And here in the minutes of the meeting from the Planning and Zoning Board, the only comment was he potentially might put up a building. We're getting a lot more detail this evening, and before them, the minutes say that the property was for extra parking for his company. But we are learning a lot more this evening that there's going to potentially be multiple businesses operated out of there, leased through Mr. Thornburg as the owner of the property when a building. So are you saying, you just said that you were going back to Planning and Zoning. Do you plan on resubmitting a new site plan soon?
So as part of the 8-24 process, you go through Planning and Zoning. You have to get a report from the Planning and Zoning Board. They can affirmatively vote yes or they can vote no. Either way, it comes to you as the Board of Aldermen. If they vote no, then it's a supermajority of the Board of Aldermen in order to approve it. They voted yes. So there's always a desire to understand what's going to happen on the property. It's a natural human curiosity about what's going to develop, and especially for the neighbors. But this process that we're in right now is for the 8-24 and the road discontinuance. So we have not presented a site plan. we try to balance it because we want to satisfy and give people the understanding of what we're proposing, so it's not in a vacuum where we're just going to discontinue the road and, well, then what's going to happen, Mr. Thornburg? A lot of times I argue with clients about should we present the site plan or should we not present the site plan, because that's not what we're really here for tonight, but we wanted to be transparent and give you as much information as of right now, real time. This is what Dan proposes to do with the site, and whether it's one tenant or four tenants, he doesn't know. So we still, if the board approved it, Dan would go back with a site plan that shows him having fee simple ownership of half of that road, half of the road bed. If this board does not approve it, Dan will go back with a site plan that shows that he doesn't own half of that road, and it'll be for the same use. So this just gives the property owner a little bit of space, but it also, it's never been developed, this road. I think the subdivision map that it came from, I think, is 1910, and as part of that, the municipalities used to dedicate the right-of-ways, but not the fee simple ownership interest of the roadbed to the municipality. And this road, I don't think, was ever developed or actually paved as far as this section of William Street goes. So it's a lot of times Public Works likes to get these off of the property books. It puts it back in the tax rolls. Public Works doesn't have the liability for maintaining it anymore. And in this case, it works to Dan's benefit as well as the city and the neighbors, because if it is discontinued, there won't be any traffic coming from Rowe Avenue or whoever is going to own the property in the future, or whatever the use might be. So.
Thank you. Chairman Vitro, through you to Attorney Kersaden. I believe that, some of the analysis that we're all going through here as part of the process to determine what to do hinges a bit upon something you said and your client said previously, which is, even if this is not approved, we're still going to go forward with a project that's going to have a building on it that is going to be for the use that you have said is he's entitled to by right. We don't have an alternative site plan to look at today, but are you able to in some way go up to that board and show us what it may look like if in fact this was not approved, which would help this board to determine whether or not this is again, he could then choose not to develop it, of course, if it's not approved, but if he was to do that, well, this is what it will be, and this is what the buffer might look like, this is what the street situation might be, versus this is what we have here today, which may or may not be better.
Sure, I'll do that real quickly, and I know Alderman Federico had her hand up as well, so I apologize. So right now, this shows William Street as abandoned, and this would be the new property line. So the street's probably, I'm going to guess, about 50 feet. The road bed is probably 50 feet wide. So I think it would be about 25 feet less space to develop. So if I was starting here, right now, if it's abandoned, I think Dan can go down to here and develop down to here, which allows you additional setbacks and gives you a little bit more space and a little bit more breathing room on the site. It also allows him to plant a little bit more buffer. He can't plant anything in the city right-of-way right now. If this were not approved, I think it would come to probably about here, around this area here. So you're talking about maybe 20, 25 feet of less development. And so really, what that would do is probably, because of setbacks and other building code and zoning code requirements, it would probably either reduce the size of this building or eliminate this building, potentially. So that would really be the impact, and there'd be a few more less parking spaces. 7,700 square feet total. Is that right, Dan? 50. I think it's close to 6,000 square feet. The building on top, 23,400. Yep. You know, that would depend on whether he would want to keep this a little bit bigger for some reason, because I think the plan is this is where Dan's business would definitely and most likely end up.
Mr. Chairman, through you to the city attorney, if we approve the abandonment or the discontinuation of the street, and a few years from now the property is sold, is there anything we, the Board of Aldermen or the Planning and Zoning Board, can do to ensure that that tree buffer that Mr. Thornburg is planning remains in place? So it's great that the details are being shared, and it's great to see that tree buffer is there, but what happens a few years down the road if the property turns over?
I would, through you, Mr. Chair, to Alder Federico, the Planning and Zoning Board would hear the application, could be a condition of their approval. So in terms of this board, I don't know if this board is, before you tonight is the discontinuance. The approval of the buffer, I think, would be part of the zoning board's purview. I think for purposes of this presentation, this is for your edification and for these folks' edification in terms of what is before them, what is the net result of a discontinuance. And I think that's when Attorney Crusaden and Mr. Thornburg represented trying to be transparent. It's always difficult to disseminate information in public settings and proper with notice and things of that nature. So I think I commend the requester to put this before it, but really in terms of tying it to the zoning application itself.
Thank you. Through Mr. Chairman, through you to Attorney Crusaden. If the street is abandoned, does the city still have an easement through that? Is there utilities that run through that they would always have to have access to?
Yes. Yes, Alderman Marlowe. There is, and the city engineer pointed out in his memo with, I think, 3 conditions of 3 different easements, but there's sanitary sewer, there might be stormwater drainage, whatever the easements are remain in there. So his development or his ownership would be subject to those existing easements. Yeah, to answer your question. The easement is, it's a 20-foot wide easement, so he would be, and it depends on the terminology of the easement, what you're allowed to, you might not be able to put a structure over it, but you might be able to do plantings or something like that, but if the city ever needed to access it for repairs, then I think some of the easements will have the property owner responsible for putting it back to the condition it was, and some of them won't, so it'll just be depending on what that easement is.
Mr. Chairman, through you, I'm looking at this, and again, Attorney Kersagian mentioned transparency. I just want to remind the board that this was before us back in March, and all the information that had been presented to us at that time for the abandonment of William Street was not in conformity with what we're hearing this evening. The property had changed hands twice. On January of this past year, that's when Mr. Thornburg, according to the city records, acquired the property. And now the previous site plan from another landscape company with the same engineering firm, and now it has been updated for Mr. Thongberg, but the problem had been previously that none of the residents that were here tonight were aware or made aware that this was before us back in March, which was one of the reasons we had passed on it then, because the history as they articulated this evening in their presentations indicated that their concerns, and some of the same members that were on this board, including the mayor, voiced concern in the minutes of that aldermanic meeting in the past of 2019. And so there are further concerns, and I would ask for a recess at this time to discuss it.
I'm going to have a 5-minute recess, please. Your seats. Recess is over. All right, we're out of recess. Alderman Healy.
Through the chair to the board, based on the presentation we've received tonight, we've made some progress, but there's still ambiguity from the residents that will be impacted by this. There isn't enough information for us to be able to make a determination on the abandonment, and I make a motion that we do not. That we do not abandon the William Street.
What is the motion? I'm sorry, I don't know what the motion is.
So the motion will be to suspend this and until another month, so we've had an opportunity for the new owners. Yes.
We have an amendment on the original motion to postpone. Do I have a second? Yeah. We're under discussion on the motion, and he made an amendment to postpone.
Usually postponement comes after everybody has an opportunity to talk.
Well, that's...
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I thought you were going to immediately call the amendment. I mean, this shouldn't be, I don't think at this point this is rocket science. You either are going to abandon or you're not going to abandon. And if you don't abandon, the project is going to go through eventually. I mean, Mr. Thornburg is hopefully, and as he stated, is a friendly businessman who said he's going to go on beyond helping out the residents. I do have a sensitivity toward the residents as to that area, but I'm sure it'll look a heck of a lot better if you have driven down there. It'll look a heck of a lot better having a project in there and having somebody like Mr. Thornburg taking care of it and adding that buffer there than it looks right now. So I don't see the need for postponement. I think we need to vote on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is it correct that should this road not be abandoned, at a later date, any owner can produce a through road all the way, which would eliminate a lot of that tree line, number one? So by abandoning this road now, it really does protect that forestation of the trees, that area.
I just didn't want to answer with a shake of the head on that one, because historically in Milford, the abutting property owners have a right to improve the city right-of-way at their own expense. So to answer your question, somebody could if they thought it was worth it, and the utilities are already in the street. So you don't have the added cost of putting the utilities in the street. It would be paving the road. You have to do it to city specs. You got to do it 50 feet wide and have the drainage and probably put curbs and sidewalks in. It's not inexpensive, but if somebody thought that it would be of benefit to them, one of the other, thinking the property owners on the other side of this right-of-way, and then you would have a city street that would be connected from Row Ave and would go all right down to William Street. That's why my point at the beginning is that realistically, the best way to protect the residential section of William Street is to discontinue the road.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the construction that you're proposing to put on here, do you think that that would also be a sound barrier in itself along with the trees that are there?
Absolutely, having another structure there would become, I don't know the exact science behind the decibel that it would help alleviate, but there is definitely going to be an additional sound barrier from the train track. The noise that you may hear from the train tracks currently, it would diminish slightly. I don't know the exact decibel amount, but it would.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, just going back to where I believe we are right now, there was a motion on the floor to approve the the agenda item. We came out of recess, and then a motion was made and seconded to postpone that item. My understanding is that discussion is now on that particular motion, and then a vote must be taken on that motion. Just from my viewpoint, one of the reasons why someone might make a motion like this is just apparent in this room that there still seems to be some confusion related to what the effect of this actual agenda item might have on a project in that location versus what the location may look like if in fact the agenda item was defeated. And there's a number of residents here who may be confused and may need some additional time to work through that and formulate some opinion that this board then may take into consideration at a later date as to whether or not to approve the agenda item. So I think at this point we need to take a vote on postponing the agenda item. Thank you.
Since we're still under discussion here, I guess through you, Mr. Chair, to the rest of the board, I just would caution us to not get into planning and zoning's regulations as to how it should be designed or what it should look like. I think our point here is to look at the abandonment of this road. And I'm not sure more information, because it's going to relate to planning and zoning items, not so much what we're involved in. That's my personal thoughts on this. And so I don't see what postponing this will do. I would rather see us vote on this if we, and let those issues that the neighbors want addressed to come before the Planning and Zoning Board, because whether this is abandoned or not, the project is still going to happen. So all those items would get resolved at Planning and Zoning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think one of the considerations for postponement is in fact the concerns of those neighbors related to the abandonment of the road. And this is certainly, I agree with you, Alderman Marlowe, that it's not our place to be acting as a planning and zoning board or dealing necessarily with the site plan. But I do acknowledge the site plan is very useful, or a proposed potential site plan that may be submitted is very useful for the residents as they try and understand whether or not they would support or not support that type of abandonment. And certainly this board has an obligation, I believe, to hear those comments and take them into consideration as part of the process. And that is why I believe the postponement motion is on the floor right now. Thank you.
Through you, Chairperson Vitro, to the board. One of the reasons why I am in favor of the amendment to postpone is because of concerns that were raised in public testimony by the residents. And as a point of order, I agree with Alderman Marlowe that we are very aware that we're not the planning and zoning, and we don't want to get too caught up in the site plan or the improved site plan, but we did hear public testimony, and we want to make sure that their concerns are heard by both the potential owner and the attorneys. We did not have that. We had a recess and then came out, and Alderman Marlowe, you were talking to the people. We're not able to do that. So the only thing we can do is listen to them, seek more information, hence the need for a rescheduling and postponement, and let that communication take place and come back to us. It doesn't mean that it is a denial, ultimately.
So we're gonna vote on postponement. All in favor? Opposed? I feel like a game show host.
Push this button. Alderman Archiola. Alderman Beatty. Alderman Beatty. Alderman Bevan. Alderman Casey. Alderman Federico.
Yes.
Alderman Fowler. Alderman Healy. Alderman Jenkins. Alderman Marlowe. Alderman Morenin. Alderman Pacelli. Alderman Smith. Alderman Vitro.
Yes.
Alderman Vitale. Alderman Willis. Alderman Archiola, I didn't hear your vote. Okay. That's what okay. 8 no, yes, 7 yes.
8 noes, 7 yes. Motion to postpone fails. We're going to vote on the original motion, seeing that the postponement is negative. On the original motion, all in favor? Opposed? Roll call vote, Madam Secretary. Should have stayed there.
Alderman Archiola. Alderman Beatty. Alderman Bevan. Alderman Casey. Alderman Federico. Alderman Fowler. Alderman Healy. Alderman Jenkins. Alderman Marlowe. Alderman Morenin. Alderman Pacelli. Alderman Smith. Alderman Vitro.
Yes.
Alderman Vitale. Alderman Willis. 12 yes, 3 no. 12 yes.
12 yes and 3 no. The motion passes. Alderman Pacelli, no, never mind, hang on. Agenda item number 9, moving on to budget memo agenda item number 9 is there is no new business. Agenda item number 10, moving on to budget memo transfers. Alderman Pacelli.
Agenda item 10A, consideration of budget memo transfers number 11 and number 12, Fund 1005, fiscal year 2024.
Motion is made and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Alderman Pacelli, agenda item 11, moving on to refunds.
Agenda item 11A, consideration of refunds in the amount of $15,699.02.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Agenda item number 12, reports of standing committees. Are there any reports of any standing committees? I don't see any. We'll close on the Rule 12. On the Rule 13, are there any reports of any special committees? Alderman Federico.
At the last meeting of the Sewer Commission, they reviewed 3 projects. The first was 249 Bridgeport Avenue, an apartment building for 50 units, and it was approved. It's at the site of the old Bridgeport Flyer Diner. The second one was 470 to 488 Wheelers Farms Road. The project was originally approved for 444 units, and it was amended to add 10% affordable housing. They're adding another 70 units for a total of 514 units, and the amended project was approved. The third one was 34 Buick Avenue, which had previously been tabled, and that was approved with a stipulation that they follow some Ordinance 32. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Federico. There is no executive session. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you, Madam Secretary, for all your hard-earned votes. I'd like to say thank you to the Assistant City Clerk for all her help in tonight's meeting, and congratulations to the new City Clerk, Peter Smith. Good night, everyone.